What's up, Raiders? Today, we're taking a look at how to deal with Echo of Neltharion. This is one of the last bosses in Aberrus, the Shadow Crucible raid. Neltharion is a 3-phase boss fight which deals with managing barriers that he puts up and using debuffs and attacks that the boss produces to deal with those barriers. He eliminates sections of the platform at a time, and you need to make sure that the raid can get to the next section before you get wiped out. In the first phase, he breaks up the platform into 5 chunks, 1 in the middle and 4 around the outer side. Then, you need to fight the boss in one of those sections. We recommend tanking at the very top and holding the group in the top section. Within one of these phases, there's 2 effects most of the raid has to worry about. Effect 1 is the purple triangles. This is going to cause a blast that will knock you back, and if you hit one of the barriers, you'll destroy the barrier. Destroying barriers puts a debuff on the entire party, and it's not something you want to do by accident or unintentionally. So the players that get these purple arrows on their heads need to run to the actual outer wall and make sure that they get knocked back into the wall instead of into one of the barriers. Anybody between the boss and the player with the purple mark gets silenced and takes unnecessary damage. So be sure that everybody in the raid is staying on the barrier side of the boss, with only people with the purple mark going over to the walls. The second effect is the red circles. Large red circles are going to go onto a number of your raid members, and those raid members need to spread out and make sure nobody is in their circle. When the circle goes off, it's going to deal heavy damage and apply a deadly dot onto the target that'll need to be heavily healed through. If multiple people get these dots unnecessarily, it can definitely lead to a wipe. Since you're dealing with such a small space, you have to be very careful about placement of these effects. Periodically, the boss is going to smash the current tank, sending them flying and applying a debuff onto the tank that increases their damage taken by 200%. When this happens, the other tank needs to taunt, and the tank that gets knocked back needs to have been knocked back through one of the barriers. This is going to break that barrier down and allow the party to move into that new section. It's also going to cause that dot that I talked about, so make sure the healers are ready for this across the whole party. Each of the barriers is broken up into chunks, and each separate chunk that gets destroyed causes this debuff. You want to be careful and try to only break 1 to 2 chunks at a time. If you break more than that, the damage from the dot is going to be too significant to deal with. After a delay, the boss is then going to drop a massive fire circle where he is standing, and everybody needs to get out of that and into the new section that just got opened up. That circle is going to land, and anybody in it is going to take a bunch of damage, and then as long as you're continuing to be in it, that's a stacking fire dot that you're going to take. So you have to get the raid out of that area. So the whole strategy of this phase is basically the current tank positioning themselves so they get knocked back through the appropriate barrier, and then everybody else just kind of moving their mechanics around to make sure they don't break unnecessary barriers and they don't hit their team with unnecessary dots. On Heroic, I would definitely recommend on every one of the Cataclysm drops that you make sure there is a healer cooldown or a raid-wide defensive of some variety to make sure nobody dies. He'll transition to Phase 2 at 60% health. At this point, he's going to destroy all active barriers. Be careful, being near one of the barriers when he gets destroyed deals massive damage, so you want to be in one of the open areas. Also, whenever a barrier is destroyed at any time in this fight, it's going to send out some brown swirls around the map. You definitely need to want to avoid these because they do a lot of damage. When he's doing this transition, there's going to be barriers like crazy getting destroyed, so you're going to have a lot of swirls to deal with. Phase 2 deals with a lot of the same mechanics as Phase 1, but they're slightly different and shadowy. So the effect on the tank is now going to knock the tank into the spirit realm, and then the tank needs to run through one of the walls before their ghost catches them. The ghost is going to be hurled back at you after a couple of seconds, and when it goes through one of the walls, it will break it. So this is still the tank's job to break down these walls. It just takes a little bit more work to make sure you're doing it correctly. We still have the purple triangles on your head that you need to bring to the outer wall, as well as the red fire circles that we want to spread out and make sure nobody is in. Also, there is an ad that needs to be burned down in 3 sections around the map. So there's 3 different ads that you need to kill before you bring the boss to 35% health. So you're going to be cleaving off of the ad onto the boss as much as you can, but the focus of this phase is definitely to kill those ads. This phase is a bit of a DPS race, and that's because of Umbral Annihilation. This is a raid-wide damage effect that he channels every once in a while that does huge damage, and then increases the amount of damage it does the next time he casts it. This means you have to be breaking down walls and killing the ads very effectively, because if he gets this thing off 4 or 5 times, it's going to be a raid wipe. The difference on Heroic is that he is going to put Corruption on a couple of raid members that's going to make them hostile to the rest of the raid. These players can be killed by your raid team, so you have to be very careful not to kill them. These are the only players that are going to be able to break a shield that exists on the adds. The adds cannot be damaged until their shield is broken, and only players with the corrupted debuff are able to break the shield. Once the shield is broken, all targets need to focus on the add and nuke it down as fast as you can. When the shield is up, DPS that do not have the corrupted need to be doing damage to the boss to make sure you get the boss down to 35% before the last add dies. At 35% and all of the dead adds, he's going to begin the transition into the final phase. This is going to break the room up into 3 large sections, 4 if you count the middle I guess, and in this phase we have some new effects to deal with. First off, the Tank Buster is going back to the same as phase 1. Now it's going to continue to do that increased physical damage taken debuff onto the current tank. The red circles go away in this phase, but you're still dealing with those purple arrows. He's going to turn several of the walls into little portals, and these portals are going to spawn adds. The adds need to be picked up and DPS down ASAP. And on Heroic, every second that they live, they gain a stacking damage dealt increase. So you have to kill them even faster on Heroic than you do on normal. With the Tank Buster effect being 200% increased physical damage, whichever tank took the hit from the boss cannot pick up the adds. That means the tank tanking the boss is taking the boss as well as every add that spawned. The main focus of this phase is dealing with those portals. So how it works is that he turns several of the walls into portals. Those portals spawn adds. If the adds are touching the puddle left behind by the portal, they take significantly reduced damage. So you need to get them out of those portals so that you can DPS them down and kill them. But every once in a while, the boss is going to cast Ebony Destruction. When this effect goes off, it's going to kill everyone in the group that is not standing in a portal. Multiple people can stand in the same portal, and portals get consumed upon the effect going off. But only portals that there is a player in gets consumed. That means that you want as many of the portals as possible to have a person in them. That way they all get consumed up, and there are not nearly as many adds spawning. The more adds you spawn, the harder this phase is. Now these portals that you're standing in also do continuous damage to you as long as you're in it. So that means that you need to wait to just before the cast goes off and then dip into your nearest portal, but you also need to be prepped ahead of time. As you see Ebony Destruction coming, you need to get to one of the portals, preferably your own private portal. I hope this guide has helped you figure out all of the mechanics related to taking down Echo of Neltharion and to get you your first kill.